Welcome to this special episode of the Duncan Cartledge Online podcast, the online resource for all construction professionals. Remember to subscribe through your usual podcast provider so you don't miss out on any updates, and be sure to visit our YouTube channel for additional content. Whether you're a quantity surveyor, construction or project manager, or any other construction professional, Duncan Cartledge Online offers more than 9 hours of video presentations available 24/7 for only £7 a month. Welcome. It's great to have you with us again for another episode. And, as always, I'm joined by Barney, my red Labrador, who helps keep an eye on things and occasionally offers up some invaluable advice. Both Barney and I would be delighted if you could take a moment to write a review. Your feedback means a lot to us. If this is the first time listening to Duncan Cartledge Online podcasts, welcome. Please remember to subscribe and catch up on our previous episodes. To existing subscribers, thank you very much for your continued support. Please help us by spreading the word. In this special episode, we'll be looking at just one topic and ask the question, is a career in construction a good idea? It's the time of the year when school leavers begin to look around for their next step. Some will consider a career in the built environment, but is that a good idea? Here are some of the things to think about, warts and all, while looking for careers, looking at private practice first. It takes 6 years minimum to become a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, RICS, and 7 years minimum for an architect to be registered with the RIBA, and to become a member of the Chartered Institute of Building takes about 5 to 6 years. The reality is, for many, it takes longer. Salaries for mid-career construction professionals are around 60k, and for mid-career architects around 50k, although of course people do earn in excess of this. But is that sufficient for all that studying and potential student debt? The RICS has recently commented that the shortage of quantity surveyors is as much a problem as the shortage of bricklayers and plasterers. Is it any wonder? LinkedIn has lots of recruiters looking for quantity surveyors both in the UK and abroad. Many have suggested that salary levels for what can be a stressful job are failing to attract school leavers. But is membership of a professional body really worth it? Surveying, unlike architecture, is not a protected title, so why bother, as anybody can call themselves a quantity surveyor? I am no great supporter of the RICS. However, if you wish to become a partner in private practice or start your own business, then it is important as it shows potential clients that you are a member of a regulated body and you operate to a code of conduct. Certainly, if you wish to work for a freelance quantity surveyor, where you could charge up to £450 a day, membership of a professional body is almost essential. When I was working in Paris, I was persuaded to participate in an RICS boule tournament at La Défense against general practice surveyors who were described to me at the time as the Gold Cufflink Brigade, inferring that they did rather well. But is that true? A general practice surveyor manages, values, buys, sells and develops land and property, acting as an agent to advise clients on investment, negotiate deals, and assess viability of commercial, residential or rural assets. They handle everything from property valuations for mortgages and sales to managing portfolios, ensuring legal compliance, planning new developments, and resolving property issues and boundary disputes. Salaries vary considerably depending on location, but it would appear that salaries are 20 to 25% higher than quantity surveyors or building surveyors. And what about building surveying? I can recall a time when building surveying was an option within general practice and not a standalone discipline. Once described to me rather unkindly as the poor man's architect, building surveyors advise on options for repair, maintenance or restoration. Building surveyors will be involved in the development of new buildings, surveying existing buildings, and the maintenance of buildings with historical or architectural importance. Building surveyors also work for building societies and banks carrying out condition surveys. Again, qualification is lengthy, a minimum of 6 years, and remuneration, according to the RICS, is in the £28,000 to £50,000 range. And then there's town planning. The government has announced that it intends to recruit 350 extra town planners in an attempt to hit its construction targets. It begs the question as to why there is a shortage. Salaries are thought to be between 30 and 45,000, and a training programme of up to 5 years, and then on to membership of the Town Planning Institute. Now, what about architecture? Schools of architecture do a very good job of selling architecture as a career to school leavers. Their web pages and brochures are full of images of students sitting in studios, making models and playing music in the background. Compare this with other built environment professions which show people in wellies peering through telescopes on a muddy construction site. There's no competition really, is there? Someone said to me the other day, and I don't necessarily agree with this, architects have a certain place in society. Well, that's as maybe, but society doesn't pay the rent. Architecture has been amongst the lowest paid professions in the built environment for decades, made worse since mandatory fee scales were abolished in common with the RICS. A combination of smaller workloads and rising costs for practices has created a crisis in the profession. An increasing tendency is for architect practices engaging in so-called suicide bidding in order to buy clients, working at rates which lose them money but keeping the revenue ticking over. It's no surprise that architects remain so poorly paid compared with other environmental professionals. This practice is also common amongst contractors and subcontractors, and ironically was called out by the RICS during the drop-off of workloads in 2008 as unethical. A more structural factor is the oversupply of architects working in the UK market. The number of architects in education has risen steadily in the past 15 years, from around 15,600 in 2010 to 20,000 in 2023. This is according to the RIBA. There are currently 40,800 RIBA chartered architects in the workforce, working for around 6,000 practices. This compares with around 30,000 registered architects in France, which has roughly the same population as the UK. There is now a massive oversupply of architects who have come through the education system over the past few years. There are too many people on the register for the amount of work, and that's the result that people are quitting their profession for more lucrative careers. In a recent podcast, I referred to the days when, for surveyors, the RICS set and marked their own exams, and the pass rate was seldom more than 40%. Rightly or wrongly, this system did restrict the numbers of RICS qualified members. The RICS has gone public in their intention to widen membership, to be more inclusive, and to widen pathways into the institution. Given the example of the RIBA, is this a good idea, or is it just dumbing down? Of course, so far we've looked at private practice. There's the supply side to consider, that's to say contractors and subcontractors. When I started my career, it was put to me that the main difference between working in private practice or for a contractor was, believe it or not, QSs in private practice were paid overtime, generally at time and a half, and received luncheon vouchers, and contractors got a car. Of course, it's not quite as simple as that. One of the primary responsibilities of a contractor's quantity surveyor or commercial manager is cost management. This can involve preparing budgets, tracking expenses, using cost-benefit reconciliation, and identifying cost-saving opportunities. Commercial managers are often involved in the procurement process, selecting suppliers and subcontractors, overseeing contract negotiations, and managing relationships with these stakeholders. These are crucial to the success of projects. Generally, supply-side careers are site-based, particularly in the early years. A commercial manager in construction typically earns between £40,000 to £80,000 annually in the UK, and averages often around £50,000 to £60,000, depending upon experience, location, London pays more, sector, and added bonuses. Senior roles and chartered professionals can command salaries over £80,000, sometimes reaching £100,000 plus, with benefits like car allowances. There is no doubt that the routes to qualification are changing, with the introduction of apprenticeships. Unlike the traditional part-time route, apprenticeships are structured programs that are run in conjunction with employers. As someone who has taught in universities on built environment programs, there is no doubt that students on apprenticeships perform much better on a number of levels, including application, presentation skills, technical understanding, and just overall confidence compared with full-time students. So, what are the positives for a career in the built environment? Well, there's the opportunity to work on some amazing projects that will improve the environment and shape people's lives, the opportunity to meet and work with some amazing characters, as well as the opportunity to work abroad, which I would recommend to anyone who gets the chance. Not only the Middle East, but North America, and if you have language skills, Europe too. If you're thinking about a career in the built environment, good choice. I'm sure that you won't regret it, and despite some of the negative stuff above, I'm sure you'll have a brilliant experience. And try to ignore the doom and gloom merchants predicting that AI will take over. And finally, putting my QS hat on. I once heard somebody say, an architect looks at a building and says, I designed that. An engineer looks at the same building and says, I calculated all the stresses in that. And finally, the QS looks at the building and says, I took the fees for that. Don't believe a word of it. It only demonstrates how other professions realise how dependent they are on the QS. That's all for this special episode. I hope you found it useful. Thank you for listening right through to the end. This has been another podcast from Duncan Cartridge Online. We'd really appreciate it if you could help us out by spreading the word, subscribing, and, if you have the time, writing a review. Until next time, thank you for your continued support and take care.